Welcome to this webinar on using organic acids in dysbiosis and detox, and we're going to focus on the phenol acids that you'll see in the organic acids test. So when we're talking about a disrupted microbiome and we're looking at the organic acid markers, we always really want to take a look at symptoms first, okay? Because no symptoms, even though the oat shows bacterial metabolites, could mean that could mean something. It could mean that they basically have a really high polyphenol intake in their diet. So you want to know, is it really dysbiosis? What if they have no symptoms at all? Okay, so it can be very confusing on the organic acid testing when we're looking at these markers, and I'm going to go through and explain why. Okay, so before you even look in an organic acids test, I always recommend going through the patient's symptoms, their history, what medications they're taking, what supplements they're taking, what's their stress level, what are they being exposed to, all their history, and especially what are they eating? What are they eating and what are they drinking? Is it balanced? Because all of that's going to show up in the urinary markers in the organic acid test, even the dysbiosis markers. So you want to know, is your patient having burning, bloating, cramping after eating? Do they have frequent loose or hard stools? Do they have irregular bowel movements? Your patient or everybody should have a daily poop, okay? You should have at least one good solid bowel movement a day. A normal bowel movement doesn't involve cramping or bloating. You shouldn't have to sit there on the pot for a long period of time. Typically, a healthy gut, a person with a healthy gut and microbiome will get up and have a couple glasses of water in the morning or a cup of tea or coffee, and within 5 to 30 minutes be stimulated to have a bowel movement most of the time. And it should come out easy. It should look like a brown banana, no undigested food. It shouldn't be floating. It shouldn't have a greasy layer on it. It should be a nice dark brown color with no black and no red or threads and all of that in it. Some other signs would be that there's a lot of gas and it's really foul smelling. When you use the bathroom, of course, it's not going to be fresh, but the smell shouldn't trail you down the hallway all the way into the living area. You shouldn't be embarrassed of somebody going into the bathroom right after you because of the smell. Okay. Other signs would be disturbed sleep, sustained anxiety, depression can also have a root cause of a disrupted microbiome, autoimmune disease. And the thing about autoimmune disease is you have to have three things. You have to have a genetic component. You have to have some portion of a leaky gut, and there has to be a trigger. Typically if you remove one of those, then you can possibly put the autoimmune disease in remission, or at least reduce the effects of it significantly. Also, do they have signs of heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, or other degenerative diseases? And so we have to have a balanced gut microbiome for optimal wellness. And fasting is a good way, because they eat our food, okay? So if we're not digesting and absorbing well, then the bacteria and the yeast in our gut are very, very happy to do that for us. And so we got to stop feeding them. I've seen people do fasting, but really reducing the types of foods. We can't fast forever, obviously, but we can do intermittent fasting or short periods of fast to really curb down the microbiome. And you really shouldn't be eating at night. And you shouldn't get up in the middle of the night and be snacking, because we need that hour, at least 12, minimum 13 hours overnight fast is optimal. because what happens, we're not feeding them. So, our microbiome follows a diurnal rhythm. So in the morning, with our first meal, they clone way out. And then at night, overnight fast, they should go way down. And that helps keep us from having overgrowth. So fasting and snacking is a really good way to keep your gut healthy and not have overgrowth. So where do these markers come from on the organic acid test? So polyphenols is the food mainly for the bacteria. So the compounds that we're going to see in the urine is benzoate, hippuric, phenylacetate, p-hydroxybenzoate, and then bacteria and Giardia produce p-hydroxyphenylacetate, and Clostridia produces this 3,4-dihydroxyphenylpropionate. And then some other bacteria will produce this carbolate from sugars. Now, benzoate and hippurate are from dietary consumption of dietary phenols. And if you watch my other two lectures, especially the one on glutathione and antioxidant, I talk about the polyphenols as being a huge part of our gut. We don't really absorb them very well, but the bacteria feed on it and they make lots of nutrients for us. So they make all these flavonoids that you see here that I've listed, and you can see that it comes from foods like parsley, celery, peppermint, cranberries, onions, peppers, tomato, broccoli, parsley, hesperidin, and naringenin. And you can see here that quercetin, which most people take for histamine intolerance, is a flavonol as well. And on this page, benzoate and hippurate produce the catechins, which are from grapes and plums, and then the anthocyanins that are from cherries and raspberries, and then malvidin, which is from broccoli, and then the epicatechins that come from chocolate, apples, blackberries, black tea, and green tea. Now, I just want to bring up that some student asked me, well, what's the difference between a phenol and a polyphenol? And so I wanted to answer that in case some of y'all were wondering. I know not all of you understand these funky chemical structures that are here on this slide, but a phenol is like one of these circles with the little double bonds in it. You can see the lines on the inside of the circle that indicates a double bond, and then it has an OH group. So that is considered a phenol. And so a polyphenol is just basically a structure that has a whole bunch of these on there. And so that's what a polyphenol is. Now, the bacteria eat them in our small intestines, but they, as things move along at the ileum, which is kind of towards the end, that's the area with the most intense growth phase, where all these bacteria and these metabolites, you're going to see them grow out from 0.1 to 10,000 before they get to the colon. Oops. So I put this slide up here just to kind of show you that in the large bowel, we have, like, let's say you're consuming black or green tea, it goes through a few metabolic processes, which it really isn't all that important for you to memorize all of that. But at some point they're absorbed, and once they're absorbed, they're oxidized and converted to benzoic and hippuric, and so that these are things we like to show up in the liver, because that lets us know we'll go through the patterns of the benzoate and hippurate in the course a little bit more, but that kind of gives us an idea of our ability to detoxify the bacterial metabolites from bacteria action on polyphenols. So if we're gonna get into detoxification, we should really understand how the liver works. So this is this red structure is the liver, and so all the toxins, basically, our body makes toxins. So the metabolic end products are toxins, and microorgans, pesticides, food additives, drugs, alcohol, and mycotoxins, of course. So they go through phase one. And so and phase one is a process that what we try to do, see, toxins are very fat loving, they're very lipophilic, and we want to add a functional group. We want to change it a little bit so that it's very reactive, so that in phase two, we can put glycine on it that makes it very water soluble, because glycine is the most water soluble and amino acid in the body. And so we have to take something that's very fat loving and fat soluble and make it more water soluble so that we can excrete it in the urine and feces. And that process most of the time is through hydroxylation. Okay, and you can see the CYP 450, and what it's doing is it, remember we talked about in the other lecture on glutathione and free radicals, the hydroxyl radical is the most dangerous free radical. So we are actually creating very dangerous free radicals in phase one, and hopefully we're not creating so much free radicals that they're going through the body and causing DNA damage, but it can happen if we're not careful. So in phase one, we use a lot of micronutrients and macronutrients, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But then phase two, that's where we're attaching the amino acids, and then now we have a water soluble waste product, and it's really easy to get rid of the toxins when it's water soluble. So these toxic intermediates, they're formed between phase one and phase two. And, so the goal is to make sure we have enough antioxidants on board, because if you don't, then you're going to, these free radicals can actually cause DNA damage and cancer and all of that. So what happens when we have an overload of toxins, the phase one gets upregulated. So now phase one's working really, really, really hard. And we've got all of these intermediates that with these hydroxyl radicals on it that are very dangerous. And then at the same time, if we have so many toxins, it inhibits phase two. So now we're really in trouble, right? So that's why we have to really have a lot of antioxidants and polyphenols on board so that these toxic intermediates are contained, and anything that slips out is quickly squashed by an antioxidant before it has time to damage your DNA. All right, so the bacteria metabolism markers. I want to talk a little bit about the phenyl acids. So like I said before, the phenyl acid, the polyphenols feed our bacteria. And so these phenyl acids are the metabolites of the bacteria action on our polyphenols, and the different ones represent different things. So they also are a reflection of bacteria action on tyrosine and phenylalanine, which are amino acids in our food. Now, a healthy gut really shouldn't have really high phenylacetic acids like number 3 and 4. It's if it accumulates really, really high. So like right here, this is, if you look at the reference range on this 3-hydroxyphenylacetic, on this one, it's 3 times the reference range. But in PKU, and that's a genetic polymorphism that we're born with at birth, those numbers could be very, very high. And you're not going to see that a lot because we test for PKU in neonates. But ever since the human genome has been mapped, there's been at least 400 milder variants that have been identified. And when we're in times of metabolic stress, such as infections or something else that really stresses the body, these enzyme weaknesses can really express and have a problem. Now, it's common for those to be high in schizophrenia, and just note that these bacterial metabolites really affect the flux of glutamate and alpha-ketoglutarate. And I really go into that a lot more in the organic acids course in modules 7 and 8 when I'm talking about energy homeostasis of the mitochondria. So if you see really high levels, you want to rule out PKU. most of the time, it's not a PKU issue. When I get to the amino acids, I will really stress, looking at the ratio of phenylalanine to tyrosine can be helpful in determining that. Sometimes it'll just go high because of a depletion of antioxidants. The intestinal bacteria overgrowth, you always want to decrease sugars and amino acids, and then maybe retest, do a gut protocol. It can also be a reflection of low hydrochloric acid in the stomach. If we're not making sufficient gastric acid, then we can't kill all the pathogens on our food. And, it allows for excessive overgrowth. Now, this is the marker, this p-hydroxyphenyl acetate. That's the marker that's most likely indicative of bacterial dysbiosis, okay? It's also from plant consumption. It could also be from amino acid supplementation. You may see it high in Parkinson's. You may see it high in certain small bowel diseases like giardia, ileal resection, celiac, inflammatory bowel, and short bowel syndrome. And now Clostridium species also make this, so it could be a Clostridium overgrowth. Now, if it's low, I always think that my patient's probably not eating enough polyphenols. That's where you need to go back to their diet history and see what they're eating. See, ask them, are they using herbs and spices? Do they drink teas? What foods are they eating? Are they getting enough polyphenols in their diet? Because that's going to show a low marker if they're not eating them, okay? Pesticide exposure can also cause very low phenol acids because basically it kills off the bacteria, and so, but you also want to look for a buildup of succinate in the electron transport chain, because that will cause reductive stress, and pesticides can impair the electron transport chain, the oxidative reduction potential gradient. Certain medical conditions like kidney disease, and they probably want to follow a whole grain diet. Now, genetics with these markers are typically diagnosed early in infancy, so I don't really put a whole lot of stock into any of the genetic markers in these bacterial markers. So some interventions to control the dysbiosis. Anytime you're dealing with dysbiosis, you have to remove foods that are feeding the bacteria and causing inflammation. And of course, I like using, the mold detox diet that we created. It's very, very helpful. We have a lot of success. There's also the anti-candida diet, fasting, low FODMAP. I have found the mold detox diet to be very, very helpful. You want to have regular mealtime habits, mindful eating, lower the stress level at mealtime, polyphenols in your diet, and of course, digestive support with digestive enzymes, bile acids, gastric acid, probiotics, and of course, you have to lower the cortisol response. And I spend a lot of time cautioning my patients that, especially if their cortisol is high and they're under a lot of stress, you're never going to recover your digestion if you don't get the cortisol down, and you're never going to recover your immune balance. That cortisol, most of the immune system is in the gut, and the cortisol is going to prevent you from having a voracious response to your foods. You want a voracious response to your food to kill off all the bacteria and the yeast on it, okay? And you're never going to recover your immune system, and you're never going to recover your gastric acid, because the cortisol is going to block the vagus nerve that sends the signal for us to release gastric acid, to release bile, for gastric motility, and digestive enzymes. So we need to really work at that stress. Some people that are highly stressed out, I tell them they need to spend an hour a day, and you can use all kind of limbic retraining, stress reduction strategies, try to balance your life, stay away from TV, politics, and news. I mean, the world's crazy, and, we're all kind of screwed, and we all know it. so there's nothing you can do about it, but except pray. And but you have to let go of the stress response and lower that cortisol to recover digestion. Now, let's say we're doing a gut protocol and we're getting rid of, and we want to detox and get rid of these bacterial metabolites, just remember when you start doing detox, you're not only going to be getting rid of the bacterial metabolites, along with it is going to come mycotoxins if you're sick because of mold exposure, chemicals, heavy metals. As you know, you follow the mold detox diet, the cells get healthy, they open up, they start excreting toxins, and then you've got like this huge amount of toxins overflowing in your body. Okay, so you want to just really be cognizant of what your total load is, because the body can become unable to detoxify if you're too overloaded. And the toxins are coming from many sources, even continued input from pollution and self-inflicted chemicals. I've heard it said that women put 83 chemicals on their body before they even leave the house. To me, that's inconceivable. You have to change out all your personal care products and stop using toxic products in the home. No air fresheners, those are toxic. And, because our body can just become a toxic dump site. If we're trying to detox, you have to stop putting the toxins in before you can, expect your body to get rid of those. We all have massive toxin exposures, so we want to reduce exposure first, right? And then we want to mobilize, bind, and eliminate them. Okay. You have to remember that when we're in toxic overload, we're going to be depleted of our antioxidants, and that's what sets off the chronic illness and disease. So we want to keep our toxic load as low as possible, replace all our antioxidants, and just kind of reassess your whole home and all the toxins. I mean, some things we don't have control over, but there's a lot of things we do. Now, you don't want to try to do a rapid detox, okay? I can tell you, back when I was trying to recover from mold illness, and back when I was just a pharmacist and I hadn't done any graduate work yet on nutrition, and I was very interested in nutrition and just learning and trying all kind of stuff. It was before I started back in grad school. I was in toxic overload, and I was very sensitive. But I said, I know, I'm going to do a juice fast, and I'm going to do, these stimulated detox. Well, I started this juice fast, and all of a sudden, every day I started developing these wild sensitivities. First, it was my deodorant, and then it was my lotion, and then it was my shampoo, and it was this and that. And then it got to where I couldn't even open this closet in my bathroom that had my soap in it. And I was really scared and didn't really know what was going on. I didn't understand about, you have to change your diet, and you have to get rid of all those toxic products, and you have to follow a healthy diet, not just a juice fast, because then you can really make yourself a lot sicker. I've seen people try to do all these stimulated detoxes, and they haven't gone through the steps of cleaning things up and lowering their total load so their body can handle a stimulated detox. Okay, so the basics of a detox is you want to support digestion, regulate hormones, reduce the cravings, regulate the immune system. It's anti-inflammatory diet, antioxidants, and then you want to make sure we have the good macronutrients in our diet. Like in the mold detox diet, we explain how to follow a very healthy, balanced anti-inflammatory diet. And, we explain about the healthy fats and lean protein, what proteins to use, and actually how to cook your foods that is less inflammatory, and how to choose a good variety of foods that's chock full of vitamins and minerals and fiber, and, and avoiding empty calories. And of course, it's kind of a no-brainer to avoid sugar, artificial sweeteners, and commercial and seed oils. I've been harping on this for a long time about avoiding commercial oils. Almost all of them are fraudulent. I recommend to my patients to only use ghee or coconut oil. If you want to use olive oil, I have found one pure, clean source, and I don't get any revenue or have any relationship with the company. But there's a company called My Greek Orchard, and you can go to mygreekorchard.com and order olive oil. The little old man that owns it, he sources it directly from Greece. And when me and my patients started using it, our lipid peroxidation levels came down like 75%. So that's how I know it's a good oil. We need to make sure we have a lot of the phytonutrients. Eat from the rainbow. The carotenoids, that's the yellow, orange, and red, the ellagic acids, which are berries, the flavonoids, which are herbs, teas, and citrus, the resveratrol from red grapes and red wine. And of course, when you're on the mold detox diet, you're really not supposed to have any alcohol. But later, when you're well and you want to enjoy a little glass of wine, I'm okay with a little glass of red wine here and there. And then, of course, the glucosinolates, which are cruciferous vegetables, they're very supportive of a healthy innate immune response. So where do you start? You want to assess the diet and the organic acids for phenol acid, and look at the phenol acids. Basics is clean food, clean water, and clean air, and starting, okay? You want to remove the foods that feed the bacteria. That's really necessary for recovery. I recently had a patient hire me, and I had her start the mold detox diet. And, she watched the videos, looked at all the handout. Next day, she emails me. She's like, this diet is too hard. I can't do it. And, it's not a diet to where you're deprived of good, nutritious food. You can eat all you want. And you should never really go hungry on the diet. It's just basically switching from these highly allergenic and inflammatory foods to non-allergenic and low inflammatory foods. And so, she had all these digestive symptoms. And so I emailed her back and I said, well, if you're not even willing to give it a try, then we're not a good fit, because you hire me to get to the root cause and fix your digestive problems. And I think your digestive problems it derives from your gut. So we're not going to get any headway. You need to go find somebody else. And then she apologizes and said, okay, I'll give it a try. I said, just select 4 or 5 recipes that you can live with, and start with that. Just say, okay, I'm just going to focus on the first 3 days. What can I eat? And you get a snacks handout, a to-go handout. And most people, once they start feeling better, they're like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother add foods back in, because this diet is so fantastic. I've never felt this good in my life. I've had people come back to me after they've been on the mold detox diet. And I said, okay, well, I think we can start with some food reintroduction. Oh no, I'm not doing that. I have never felt this good. I'm staying on this diet for the rest of my life. I'm like, okay. And it's very healthy, and you can stay on it the rest of your life, okay? So you really want to know how to use nutrition to detoxify and restore your digestion. Nutrition is high in polyphenols, high in antioxidants, has quality macronutrients, and it ensures micronutrients. So, to support phase 1, you remember I said in an earlier slide, phase 1 is where we're putting that hydroxyl radical. So we want to make sure we have all those B vitamins, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, that really supports phase 1, along with folate. We want glutathione as an antioxidant on board. Branched chain amino acids are needed in phase 1, flavonoids, phospholipids. So you can see you need a wide variety of antioxidants. So, some of these antioxidants that we need for to help us protect us from free radical are minerals. Most people don't realize that minerals also act as an antioxidant, okay? The flavonoids, the carotenoids, the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, polyphenols, vitamin C, glutathione, resveratrol, All of those are needed to help contain those free radical productions between phase 1 and phase 2. Okay. Now, there's also another way things are, another phase 2, besides conjugation. Conjugation is where we add the glycine, but our detox also includes glucuronidation, which is like maybe using olive oil, and methylation. We have to be methylating well. And so if you want to understand methylation a little bit more, in my using organic acids and histamine intolerance, I really do a deep dive in what to look for to see if you're methylating property to break down histamine. But those same markers are used in detox. Okay, we have to, because we use methylation in detoxifying the liver, and also sulfation. And sulfation, you go back to the webinar that I did on the using organic acids and looking at free radicals and glutathione, because you really want to see, do I have enough sulfur? The NAC, the cystathione, is the glutathione pathway being upregulated because of high oxidative stress. So including the sulfur foods is very, very important. So a lot of these hormones and drugs are actually excreted through this glucuronidation and these other pathways. And and also aspirin, acetaminophen, morphine, and drugs like diazepam. So in summary, we want to assess the symptoms versus the OAT markers. We want to treat if it's symptomatic. Recently I had a patient that had an organic acid test, and D-arabinitol was very high, and D-arabinitol is very specific for candida. It's the only marker that has research behind it that pretty much identifies candida. And I was talking to her, and she's like, no, I don't have any digestive symptoms. All that's gone. No gas, no bloating, daily bowel movements, no undigested food in the stool. I'm like, oh, man, your candida marker is so high. So I went back to her diet, and she was eating sauerkraut with every meal. And I said, were you eating this sauerkraut at the time that you collected your specimen? And she said, yes, I was. So I was like, okay, we're not going to treat that. Let's stop the sauerkraut. Let's reduce your fermented food intake. Now, we need fermented foods, but you can give yourself dysbiosis or candida overgrowth. I remember at one time I had this big kick of like making my own kombucha, and it was so good. I was drinking one every day. Next thing you know, I had all this gas and bloating, and I had developed candida overgrowth from drinking too much kombucha. So of course I had to follow the mold detox diet and do a gut protocol, get my digestion working back. And now I only drink a kombucha like maybe every couple of weeks when I go to the grocery store, go grocery shopping. I'll pick up a kombucha there and drink it as my little treat. But you can actually give yourself dysbiosis and candida overgrowth by eating too many fermented foods. Okay, so also remember, you want to use a lot of polyphenols in your detoxification food, because they're food for the healthy gut bacteria. They benefit detox, digestion, and immune balance. And it's really important to understand how the liver detoxifies and the phase 1 and phase 2 mechanisms that we went through here in this lecture today, and the importance of antioxidant protection from that free radical, those intermediates. And then you want to include some strategies. You want to know how to approach dysbiosis with the anti-inflammatory diet. And, I combine that with a gut protocol. And I'm not going to give you a gut protocol, but you can contact pretty much any of these professional supplement companies, and they all have really good protocols, and I've used them all, and they're all really good. But you can't just do the protocol and not do the diet changes, and you can't do the diet changes without the protocol and think you're going to fix dysbiosis. I mean, it might get better with one or the other, but to completely restore, you need to combine it together. Okay. So this is an introduction to my organic acids course. You really don't want to miss out on taking my course. It's the most incredible course made on learning how to interpret organic acids. I'm giving you a $200 discount off of it. You can use that coupon code from my website and get the course for $99. There's 10 videos. I go through each section. I go through every pattern. I tell you all the clinical pearls and what to do with that pattern and how to assess it. When you're finished, you're going to have, such a good understanding. And I even give you a badge that you can put on your website that you're an organic acid trained practitioner, if you're a practitioner. And it's really funny. Some of my patients that have watched my webinars, they went and bought the organic acids course because they found it so fascinating, and they got the workbook and they're doing all their little studies with it and learning. So even if you're not a practitioner and you are a lay person, for $99 you probably learn more than about organic acids than any practitioner you could hire. I mean, it's very, very detailed. It's not like any other organic acid courses out there. None of them can touch what I've done. I mean, I go through the biochemistry. I explain where all those markers come from. I think that you'll be really thrilled with the content. So I also have the other courses. I talk a lot about the mold detox diet. I mean, that is a great diet to follow, whether you have mold, or you have autoimmune disease, or you just have dysbiosis. So you want to follow that diet to recover your gut. And then, of course, any kind of immune dysregulation, not just for mold, but in my advanced mold immune course, I teach all about how to recover your immune system naturally and how to assess it, what labs you need. It's a pretty intense course. A lot of lay people have bought it. I made it for practitioners, but a lot of lay people have bought it and really helped themselves recover. And if you want to book a consult with me, you can go to my website, drgailclayton.com, and to book a consult. So thanks for watching, and keep tuned. I'll be making more.